Well, hello again. This is Brian Copeland talking. Welcome to another edition of Copeland's Corner. This is episode number 159 of the podcast. So if you've been listening since the beginning, we've done 158 episodes so far. And this is our fourth podcast on YouTube. So the fourth time that you actually get to see us while we do the show. I'm here in my family room, and I will be joined if all goes well, via Zoom, by a distinguished panel of comics and special guests today. A couple of things, and you probably noticed something a little different here. Just felt like a change. You ever feel like I just want to change something about myself. So I grew this goatee. I haven't had a goatee in a while, and the damn thing came in gray. And I'm debating. It's not all the way in yet. It's still coming. It's still coming in, and I'm debating whether or not I should color it. Whether I should color it or whether I should leave it like all gray and salt and peppery. And I'm not sure. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it out to public referendum, and I will leave it to you. Send me an email to briancopelandshow@gmail.com and tell me whether you think I should color it or whether I should just leave it exactly the way that it is. I will do whatever it is that you say. You like that? See what I do for my viewers and my listeners. Whatever you want, I will do. It's just that simple. Just one thing before we get to the comics, kind of public service announcement. The Center for Disease Control yesterday approved two new vaccines, one through Pfizer, one through Moderna for COVID, because we got a COVID surge coming. It's already started. Hospitalization rates are ticking up. The new variants that are around are descended from Omicron, I think. And they say that they are completely immune to any of the vaccines that you've had so far. So any vaccine, if you're completely up to date in your vaccinations, it means absolutely nothing as far as these new variants are concerned. So they say that everybody over the age of 6 months needs to get the shot. It should be available as early as next week. Everybody over the age of 6 months get it. If you're somebody who's got asthma, lung problems, if you're somebody over the age of 65, if you're somebody who's got respiratory issues, you may need to get 2 or 3 of them. So take it seriously and get the shots. I know they say people have COVID fatigue. Well, I get flu fatigue from getting the flu every year. There's lots of things we get fatigued from, but you grow up and you're an adult, you take care of what's got to be taken care of. I'm so tired of hearing people, I'm not getting another shot. They're not telling me what to do. I have freedom. I don't have to get a shot. I have freedom. No, I don't call that freedom. I call that Darwinism. That's what I call that. If you've got a way to protect yourself so that you don't get a potentially deadly disease, but you're instead going to listen to Fox News and Newsmax and Trump and right-wing idiots and decide not to protect yourself, that's Darwinism. So this should not be politicized. It never should have been politicized. Just go get the damn shot. Get the shot. This is the part of the podcast that we call Headliners on the Headlines. 3 special guests joining us this week. First, Lauren Mayer, who is always here, but she's still a special guest, even though this is episode number 159, I figured out. 159. Wow. You've probably done about 140 of them, I think, Lauren.
Maybe. I haven't been on in a while, and this is my first time on video. So
first time on video. This is our 4th one on video. So welcome.
It's been a while. Thank you.
Kate Robards is joining us, one of the hottest rising young comics coming up in New York. She came from here and left us to go work for Time Magazine in New York. How are things going?
They're great. I'm working from home today and dog sitting, so I apologize for the dog barking.
Okay, it's all right. You control, you have a muzzle or something, or a tranquilizer gun, something.
Spray bottle.
Or Trazodone works real well. Trazodone, which is doggy Valium, that works really well. And special guest, ultra special guest, is Tom Sawyer. If you don't know Tom, Tom is a legend in Bay Area comedy. There are so many of us, including and especially myself, whose careers we owe so much to Tom for what he did when he had the original Cobb's Comedy Club in San Francisco, and how he found talent and nurtured talent and told us what we needed to do and what we needed to drop, and it just had an eye and a gift for it. And now, well, first, good to have you for that. And now you're doing voice work.
Yes, voice work, and also there's a documentary out about Cobb's and myself and the days of Chestnut Street and the Cannery and Columbus Avenue, where Cobb's is still located.
You mentioned the documentary. Well, I have two questions. Number one, where can you see it? That's the first question.
Tubi, you can see it for free on Tubi or Plex, or it's on Amazon Prime, and so it's out there. And it's called The Comedy Club, and it also has the late Bob Saget in it, one of the and Dana Carvey, Paula Poundstone, Kevin Pollak, Kevin Nealon, a lot of Kevins. Kevin
All the Kevins
couldn't
coming
get
up.
Kevin Rooney. That's unfortunately, but there's a lot of folks in it. George Wallace, Bill
I'm
Maher.
told am I in it? Somebody told me I was. I haven't seen it.
You might be in it for a bit. There's so many people that aren't in it because it's like one is it always people go, well, why wasn't I in it? And I'm going, because I wasn't the director. It wasn't my movie. It's
Right.
about me. I don't get to go, here's how I would portray me,
I
but
can't know what you're doing, but I'm getting motion sick.
I am so sorry. I was, dog sitting, right? I had to do a peanut butter activity wall. This dog is got my dream life. This dog is living the dream. This dog has my dream apartment, my dream life, my dream diet.
Peanut butter.
So yeah, peanut butter. So hopefully she won't be barking anymore. So
All right. Well, hopefully you won't bark until we get through this hour. I'm going to start with this. I had something else I wanted to start with, because usually we start with news stories, but this was something that was kind of brought to my attention right before we signed on. There is a debate that's going on around Bay Area comics right now on Facebook about whether or not crowd work, and that is playing. You know what crowd work? Don't know what that is. It's not doing your act. It's playing with the audience. It's what do you do for a living? Where are you from? Walking out in the crowd, playing with the audience instead of doing prepared stuff. Whether or not that is actually legitimate stand-up and legitimately an art form, or whether or not it's something that hack lazy comics do. And Tom, I wanted to ask you first. I'll ask you first. Is it something that just hack lazy comics do?
well, there are people who are amazing at it and incorporate it into their show. Paula Poundstone is one of those. She is brilliant at it. So I would never want to see a show where Paula Poundstone where she was not doing crowd work, but she's magical. Jimmy Brogan did it a lot. That was almost his entire act. But I also thought that Jimmy wasn't really good at controlling the audience like Paula is. And everybody else, I think it's hacky. I think it just screams, I don't have enough time to fill. And I don't want to say who the comic was, but I saw a comic at a theater who I love. And it was probably the most disappointed I'd been seeing this guy. And he played Cobb's for a decade, and he's been out there since the 90s. And so, actor and comedian, and a guy who I really admire, especially stand-up wise. And about 35 minutes into his act, it just stops and he's like, okay, now crowd work. I mean, pretty much you could have said that. It just Paula incorporates it seamlessly into her act with other material. He basically stopped the show, did some crowd work, and I was so annoyed.
You watch the clock.
Yeah.
You basically
Yeah, and
watch
then
the
and then once it stopped, it stopped. And then there was another 10 or 15 minutes of material. There is a trend in comedy right now that drives me nuts, which is I have to put on an entirely new show. From, instead of like incorporating like a half an hour's worth of material from, the hits. How about the hits? Let's call them the hits.
Well, but
How
here's
about
the
half an
problem.
hour of hits and then then a bunch of new stuff? I'm all for new stuff.
Here's the problem. The problem is that everybody's putting their stuff up, is putting 1 minute clips of their stuff on TikTok, or putting it on Facebook, or putting it
Or
on
putting it in a HBO special or a comedy special on many of the sites that there are. But people still want to hear the hits. I can hear "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey by a multitude of over multitudes of years and multitudes of singers. But when I go see Journey, I want to hear "Don't Stop Believing."
Okay, I'm going to stop you here because you're embarrassing yourself.
Well, I'm using Journey as an example that we all know and love.
Can I chime in, Brian, with one addition to his list? And I'm also dating myself for how old I am here. I waited in line when I lived in New York to do Catch a Rising Star a long time ago. And it was a day that Robin Williams dropped in, and I was singing my comedy songs, and thank God I went on before him, not after. And I think he had come in prepared with, I didn't meet him or anything, but he came in prepared with stuff. But this poor woman got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of his set, and he just riffed with her the rest of the time. And it was still one of the most magical things I've ever seen. I feel sorry for that poor woman. She probably has bladder problems to this day, but he riffed, and I've seen some comedians do it almost as a response to hecklers. So I think that's
different. I'll give you a break with hecklers. I'll give you.
But I mean, that was the whole rest of the show. He stopped.
Well, I think,
Kate, yeah, because Kate, you're in the
Yeah.
trenches.
well, I think, I mean, what you were saying about the clips is a really big thing. And it's, I, being a jazz fan, knowing comedy's born out of jazz, right? You've got Lenny Bruce hanging out with the jazz musicians. Ella Fitzgerald did 10 nights in LA, and Columbia released one night, and they found these albums in a room. And it was like, oh, out of these 10 nights, there were different celebs, right? She's riffing off of who's in the audience. She's improvising, and they released them all as an album. And I use that as an example of like, nothing's new, but with everybody videoing all their sets, you're going to have these little moments, these little magic moments. And you look at Matt Rife, who's like the hottest, young, and I mean, like physically, he's had work done, young male comedian. And then like Ari Schaefer, Big J Okerson, I think just announced they're doing full specials that are just crowd work. And it's definitely, I use Ella Fitzgerald because it's like she's an artist that has withstood the test of time already, and it's not at the sacrifice of her art form, right? It was in addition to, and they were cut out from the original album. So I think if you're just doing it as a means to not have solid writing and solid work, or, like Tom was saying, your core, although I think like comedy dates itself. Comedy language is always in flux. So it's like comedy is the worst dated. Like Journey, that song can live up, right? Music can live up, but like comedy ages, even in the short amount of time.
You've heard a joke. Although that comment was mentioned, and there's certain bits that I can hear over and over and over again that still make me laugh.
Well, the other thing is that how many times have you had somebody go, a civilian, not a comedian, but a civilian go, I saw this comic last night and did this joke, and they start doing you the joke, and you're going, I'm definitely sure they didn't do it like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be laughing a very polite way right now, but that's not how that comedian did it. And that's the thing, is what happens is we all do that. We go, oh, you got to see this guy. He has this bit. And then you take him to the comedy club next time he's in town to see him, and he doesn't do the bit because now it's a whole new act. And it's not quite as good because, look, everything goes in cycles. Comics, aren't magic every time. I've seen Bill Burr like dozens and dozens of times, and, probably 80% of the time it's brilliant, but there are 20% of the time where it's like, okay, that was good, but it wasn't one of his best. And, you know, I always say when you have some hits, it's always good. Sprinkle them in. It's not going to hurt anything. And especially if you have the kind of catalog that somebody like Bill Burr has, where some of this stuff is timeless because it's stories about when you were growing up and stuff like that. Same with Brian Regan. You know, do some of the hits. It's not going to kill anything. It's going to make the set stronger. It's going to, everybody's going to be tapping their friend. This is the bit, So I'm pretty much a little bit old school in that sense, where even if it's like 40 minutes out of an hour that's new, I'm okay with that. Just throw in some hits.
All right. And that's usually how it is when you go to a concert. When like you said, when you go to a concert, you want to hear him do the hits. You don't want to hear him just, Prince would actually get some grief from that, because Prince would come into places and would actually kind of sneak into places where, places that held like 300 or 400 people, and you had to know somebody in order to get in. And then he'd sit down and play all new stuff, stuff that nobody would ever heard before. And a lot of people would leave disappointed, because they wanted to hear Little Red Corvette, and they wanted to hear, Purple Rain and some of the other stuff.
So some deep
Could
cuts.
I jump in one more thing? There was a great story, but I know a lot of artists get tired of doing their greatest hits. And I read this in the obit for Tony Bennett. Somebody asked him if he got tired of singing I Left My Heart in San Francisco. And he said, no, do you get tired of making love? And I thought that was a really good way of
that was a little snippy of Tony.
That's true.
And then on the opposite end of that spectrum, you have Steve Martin, who quit because he was like, every time I go to do my joke, the audience beats me to it, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a way, Mike Birbiglia does this great thing where he's like, he does a callback to people who know his work, and it's not repeating the work, but he's like, his wife's name is Jen, not Chloe. And he's like, my wife's name is Jen, so I said Chloe. And he's done that in all of his shows. That doesn't mean that that's what that show is about. But I think whenever like you're referring to someone like Bill Burr, it's kind of killed once the specials come out. You can refer to it, but it's like, I feel like
you can't do it. You can't do it.
At least not ever. You can, but it's also, I just feel like time, right? And also my job as a comic is not to make you laugh. My job is to make you think. And that's George Carlin, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully laugh.
Yeah.
But
well, don't get me wrong. I'm the biggest, proponent of new stuff. I think you have to keep moving. Comedy is, like the Woody Allen joke about a shark. The shark has to keep moving forward or it dies. Comedy is the same way.
Me was that it was a living, breathing thing.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It was a living, breathing thing.
The bigger thing is that clipifying thing, because I see so many clips that do well online and I see them in person and I'm like, it's subjective, but I'm like, they're not getting the laughs. It was really edited well. But it's just not the same person because you're watching a highly edited version of something.
Yeah. And also I want to make it clear, I'm just talking about like crowd work and, doing filler stuff. If you're doing an hour of new material, and it's actual material, I'm okay with that. But when you're resorting to doing stuff that, the person I'm talking to, I've never seen do crowd work ever. And it was okay, but most crowd work I've seen, I would say 90% of it it's a trick. It's like a magic trick. It's like, you do things that are easy and simple, and there hasn't been a bunch of times where I was blown away by anybody doing crowd work, other than again Paula Poundstone.
Who was just a master.
It's just trending.
I'll tell you who else was Steve Martin. I opened for Steve Allen a bunch of times, and Steve Allen was great at crowd work. That was actually, he would slot in 20 minutes out of his set that just to do crowd work, and it would all be different. It would be different every night, and it would be funny every night.
If it's organic, I think it's great. I mean, that's the thing is this was so unbelievably like the show put on the brakes to do crowd work. And then, now we're going to do material again.
It was
that seemed really weird.
Obviously just filling time. Let me shift gears for just a minute too, because you something else I wasn't going to talk about, but I do want to mention that. I do want your take on. Because you were mentioning, some of the comics from back in the 90s, and you used to book Louis C.K. a lot. Louis C.K. used to come through Cobb's. And there is a new documentary out that is at the film festivals. And I don't know if anybody's picked it up yet, but apparently, Netflix or somebody's going to pick it up. And what it's called is, Was Louis C.K. Really Canceled? because once it came out what he'd been doing with younger female comics who had less power in the business than he had, and he was masturbating in front of them or would ask them. That was the whole thing. Well, I asked, if it was okay.
He did that to one of my waitresses, I found out later on.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Really? And he would ask, and so what happened was when this came out, he had all these deals that were set up for television shows that he was starring in, as well as shows that he was producing, and a movie coming out. All that stuff got canned, and then he wasn't working. Then 6 months later, he starts working out in clubs, and then within a year, he'd won a Grammy. He'd won a Grammy award within a year of this happening, and now he's selling out Madison Square Garden again. So do you think that he served his time in show business jail? Can you really say that he got canceled?
What do you want to say?
No, I'm curious.
Well, I would say he did something wrong, and
Right.
that was, it wasn't enough to, put him, get him arrested, but it was enough for people to remember that's the guy that did that. I mean, it takes a little while to get that out of your head. It's like I see Jeffrey Toobin on CNN. I know that's the guy that has pants around his ankles. It takes a while for that picture to get out of your head. And the ugly truth is we knew about this before. A lot of people in the comedy community knew about this before it became public. In fact, I was telling some people when the Me Too movement came up about, and a lot of people were getting, exposed for what they did.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. I felt that I was hoping that Louis and his people would get ahead of this thing, put him in rehab or whatever, come out as a sex addict or whatever you do.
Rehab.
Yeah.
What kind of rehab is there for? Is it okay if I jerk off in front of you? What kind of rehab?
Well, you come out and say, I have issues and problems. You get ahead of it. You try to get ahead of it somehow, but instead they, I think Louis' management tried to intimidate the people that were coming, that were starting to come out. Yeah, they were, you're never going to work in this town type of thing again. So, which is too bad. I think he could have got ahead of it. I mean, I've known Louis for a while. He's a very odd duck, so, and then I heard about him doing this, and I just felt like, it's kind of, and it got worse. I think it started out with him being polite about it. Hey, would you like to come to my hotel and do, watch me do such and such? And then later on it became like, hey, would you like to come to my hotel? And then, hey, do you mind if I do such and such now that you're here? And and then it became like him leaning against the door and doing such and such and going, hey, if you don't want me to do this, just say stop. So it got worse and worse.
All right, let me ask Lauren. Do you think that he suffered enough repercussions for what happened?
I mean, I don't know, because I don't know what he did during that downtime. I like to think maybe he got into.
He wrote. Is what he did during downtime.
He did what?
He wrote. He wrote. And he was popping into clubs in New York and working stuff out. And then in the next Grammy Awards, he won a Grammy. And
I mean,
he's selling out Madison Square Garden again.
The fans
obviously don't care. His fans don't.
Fans don't care, and I don't know if it's for me to judge. I mean, again, it's all sort of relative. I mean, compared to Matt Lauer and a few other people who did way worse things. On the other hand, by that logic, Al Franken should be back in Congress, because I don't think.
Oh no,
yeah.
So, I don't even know what enough is. I wish he had gotten into therapy. I wish he had maybe come out as a sex addict, because that is a real thing and it makes people do crappy things, and gotten some, and let's hope he's not doing it again. So, if he's, so I don't know. I just feel like it's this whole system is rigged anyway. So I don't know.
Let me ask Kate, because Kate, as I say, you're in the trenches, because you work on the club, so you're in the trenches. And is there, have you heard of, or are there weird things that are going on that you're aware of?
Well, I would say this. First of all, like I'm not even working the clubs. Like I do work at Time, but I work at Time Studios. You know, I'm passed at some low level clubs, and I do a lot of like the, you know, the downtown kind of like kooky scene. And I think
I watch your clips all the time. That's why I say
the
you're
power dynamic. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm out there every night, but it's like, you know, the clubs are still, I'm not at the cellar, I'm at one down the street. So it's like, I think the biggest thing, I love what Sarah Silverman said on the Howard Stern show. She said, yeah, he asked me and I was never intimidated because I'm funnier than him. And I love her.
Yeah.
And I think where that power dynamic comes, you know, I'm not, I'm trying to think like you know, if I'm at the Stand, I'm not like a club regular at the Stand, but I'll do some of their shows and I have a monthly show there. You know, I see comics, you know, Chappelle, like there's people who I super admire. And I think for me, what was interesting were comics who you never saw go places, who were like this power dynamic. And I felt like I had to say yes. And I don't know, I like, I think what Lauren said, it's like if his audience follows him, I'm a fan of his, and I think, you know, he's not a Harvey Weinstein. It's subjective. I'm not saying I'm not one of the women who that happened to, but you know, it's like I live in New York and people have their privates out all the time, and I'm like, you know, so you know, put that away, or like do, you know, or you just look away, or even, I mean, I work in TV and film for my day job, so it's like you have to be hyper careful what happens. And you know, I work for women specifically. Like my boss created Gullah Gullah Island and Taina, and I think it's like it feels safer for me to work for a woman because who's, you know, married with kids or whatever. Because I'm like, maybe she won't violate me. But I think that power dynamic is the biggest thing. And I've downloaded I've paid $6.99 for those specials. And what is cancelable? I don't know.
And it's
Like,
a
I
sad
don't,
comment, like you said, Kate, we just get used to, I mean, I've been around for a long time and just got used to, you know, bosses, her, you know, you just, oh, you know, somebody who
Yeah.
kept telling me he watched me change backstage for a show. And my reaction was a TV personality. And my reaction was, if you haven't seen it at this age, maybe you should. I mean, I just, you know, you sort of crack jokes about it. I saw a flasher on the subway right before, because I lived in New York back in the 80s, you know, flashers were all the time. And and this guy wasn't just flashing. My only reaction was, oh God, I just got these pants back from the dry cleaners. I mean, you know, you just kind of let some of that stuff roll off. And that doesn't mean it's right. But there's so many bigger things to worry about. I guess Louis C.K. let him work. That's his
And
own.
there are people, you know, I was Cosby's opening act for 10 years when he would come to the Bay Area,
He's different.
you know,
Yeah.
and he's absolutely canceled. He thinks he's going on tour. And it's like, where are you going to go on tour? Number one, what venue is going to book you? And if a venue does book you, who's going to cross the picket line? Because there will be a picket line.
Yeah.
Who's going to cross the picket line in order to go in and see you perform?
Well,
I
and
got
who's going to be
to
the what venue is going to do that? It's going to affect their other shows as well. So it's like, you just look, I think especially for things like this that aren't have been criminally prosecuted, it's entirely up to the public, you know. So he did his time. His career is probably never going to quite be the same as it was before, but it's, you know, that's what happens when you do something that you know, is not cool. So he paid the price, and you know, let's move on.
Yeah.
Can I just real quick say about Cosby? So I'm from this small town on the Texas-Louisiana border, Orange, Texas. And right before it really came out, you know, everybody knew about it, but before it really, really came out, he performed at the Letcher Theater in my hometown.
Letcher?
2 shows. It's called the Letcher Theater, and it's
Oh,
actually like,
okay.
but and he said at the Holiday Inn Express, my hometown, my mom goes, thank God we got him. And he even did another show. And I'm like, they would never have gotten Cosby. And she's like, thank God. Like, and this was right before it all happened. But she's like, at least it came out. It was right before he was canceled, because we really needed that as a town. Like, we needed to laugh. And I was just like, you know, even, I mean, I studied his albums as a kid, and they're taken down from Spotify. And it's like,
are
I mean,
they? Are they on Spotify now?
I think so. I think it's like, where do you separate the art from, you know, we still let Trump say grab the pussy and be president. Like, where's the art separated from the person? Where,
Yeah,
Using
I'm
Trump
a-
and
I-
art in the same sentence should not ever happen.
Yeah,
I know, I
I'm
know.
against that kind of thing where you just get like this is a body of work, this is what he did. So to me, there are two different things, I mean, we still have Mein Kampf at the library, and we
Right.
should, I mean, I'm anti-book burning. I don't care what is out there. If it's a book, if it's an art, we need to keep it out there. So if it's bad, we learn from it history wise, we study it, we analyze it.
Right.
And if it's great art, appreciate the art, and you don't have to admire the person,
Well, Wagner,
But
for
do
God's
you
sake.
give them money? Do you give them money? That's the thing. I mean, like Spotify, they get
You're,
them
you're
fractions of
supporting
penny.
financially.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
what- Well, I will.
Hitler's not making
royalties.
royalties on Mein Kampf anymore, I don't think.
Somebody is to print it.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I say we wait till Louis dies, and then we put out all his specials again.
Okay.
I will say two things on Cosby for the record. One is I never saw anything. I never remotely saw anything. I would see him pre-show. He would hold court before the show backstage, where he usually would have a circle of 15 or 20 people who were admirers or friends of the producers or whoever, friends of mine who I was invited to bring backstage, and he would just tell stories and be funny till time for him to come on. That's the only thing I ever saw. And the second thing is I probably saw him, and the coolest thing was getting to watch it. I watched him from the wings, and I probably saw him at least 20 times, and never once in 20 times did I hear him repeat a joke. Never
Yeah.
once. And
I have to say, I only saw him once, and it was about 7-8 years ago, maybe a little longer. I loved Cosby when I was a kid, but I didn't laugh once. I wanted to go, but me and my wife were like in the middle of about like a 30 row, about 7 rows out, 30. Right in the middle, we'd have to go, excuse me, like a dozen and a half times to get out. So some people, comedy is subjective, I remember one time somebody left a Brian Regan show saying that was the worst thing I ever heard, the worst comedian I've ever seen. And as they were opening up the door, this gigantic wave of laughter. It was almost like it was pushing them out. And this person's going, this person was awful. And I'm going, did you just hear that? I mean, you open the doors and there was an explosion of laughter, and you're telling me this person is awful. I get it. That's your taste. That's okay. But I'm not giving your money back.
that's why Baskin Robbins has so many flavors of ice cream.
Exactly.
That's right. This ice cream, this pineapple bubblegum ice cream is awful.
Now, in that case, that's an objective fact.
Right.
Speaking
All right,
of
let's jump
cancel
into these-
culture,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
speaking of cancel culture, I'm also super, curious because there's Shane Gillis is a comedian who just released a special, and he was supposed to be on SNL. I don't know if you know about this, Brian, but he was
I noticed.
canceled because he had said things in a podcast years prior, and he never got cast on SNL, but he continued performing and doing everything. And I think people are so, especially, I went to graduate school in the Bay Area, and I'm from rural Texas, and it's like I didn't understand pronouns until I got to the Bay Area, and it's like I always say it's the liberal version of the Deep South, right? It's like the converse of that, right? It's the total opposite. And people can just be outraged for saying the wrong things without understanding the context and the layers. And like when you're talking about caricature, or like your shtick or whatever that kind of character is, because I had to lose my Texas accent to have a corporate job. But like sometimes people are so quick to cancel someone that they're missing the context of what they're actually trying to say. And I think it's really fun for some people who I've told to watch Shane Gillis's special on Netflix. They're like, oh, well, he's a racist and I'm like, watch it and tell me what you think, I'm not saying he deserves it. I don't know him personally, but
that drives me crazy. We're going to go back 2-3 decades and find something objectionable that you said, and then we're going to cancel you. That is crazy, because we grow up, society grows up, everybody evolves. So things that were funny and that were okay to say out loud, 30 years ago, we know that now. But you can't put somebody in jail for something they said, or cancel somebody for something they said 30 years ago when bunches of people were saying stuff like that. That to me is crazy.
It was like I think it was Fallon who apologized for doing an impression of Chris Rock back when he was on SNL like 20 years ago, and he did it in blackface, and it was 20 years ago. And it's like, is that something that needs to be apologized for now? It was 20 years ago. Not that it was okay even then. It was offensive to a lot of people even then. But it's like, is there a statute of limitations? Because look at like James Gunn. James Gunn, who directs the Guardians of the Galaxy's movies. The third one he got fired from because they found some it was either texts or tweets that he had sent out like 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And
it only proved that he was a bad comedian, not that he was. That's to me. That was like, okay, that's somebody trying to be edgy, and every comedian goes through that phase where they go, I'm going to go out and be edgy tonight. And they go out and they step, and it's like they stepped in a huge pile of dinosaur shit. It's like and there's no way out, because as we all know in comedy, you're supposed to do, when you got 10 minutes, you're supposed to do 10 minutes. And you do that joke in the first 2 minutes and the show's over, but you're up there for 8 minutes. You only know where the line is that, until you don't know where the line is until you cross it. And
I think about stuff that I used to, there are bits that I used to do. There's no way I could get away with now. There's absolutely no.
But would you even want to? That's the thing. Is like, I mean, I remember this. I was watching this movie, and then I stopped watching it because I wanted to watch it with my wife, and I said, "You got to watch this movie. It's the most. It would set everybody's career on fire." And it's Freebie and the Bean with James Caan and Alan Arkin, and it is the most politically incorrect, cringy movie ever. But it's hilarious in how things have changed.
Right.
And but they haven't taken it off the shelf. You can still watch it, but if you want to watch something that still has some amazingly funny parts in it, but it's super cringy now, I highly recommend it.
I remember trying to show my daughter 16 Candles. Oh man. Have you seen 16 Candles at all in the last?
Long Duck Dong.
Yes.
The stereotypical characters.
Oh yeah. And on the other hand, there are things you couldn't get away with now that, I mean, I still think Blazing Saddles is one of my favorite movies. And my dad showed it to my kids when they were way too young to see it. And they couldn't make that today, even though the point it was making is so valid today.
Yeah. But and a lot of people forget that was, Richard Pryor was one of the main writers on that film.
Richard Pryor was supposed to be the lead in that film.
Yes.
Right.
And was replaced. And he and Mel Brooks had a major falling out because of that. The fact that he was replaced. I watched it not too long ago to try to see if it held up. It doesn't hold up.
You don't think so?
No, we grow up, we move on. I mean, I watched Beetlejuice last night. I was so excited about it because my wife hadn't seen it before. And there were moments that were still, most of the Michael Keaton moments, but the dialogue is really like trite, and everything, the special effects are like, woo, and it doesn't hold up. I mean, I wanted it to be as magical it was as for, the many times I watched it over the years, but I watched it again and the magic had just completely worn off.
Can I throw in a Beetlejuice reference? Did you guys all see that Lauren Boebert got kicked out?
Yeah, I'm going there right now.
Oh, sorry.
That's where I'm going right now. And that is Representative Lauren Boebert. I saw this just before we came on. Of Colorado on Saturday night, went to see Beetlejuice the musical at some performing arts center in Denver, and she was vaping, and she was singing, and she was recording the performance. Actually, had her phone out recording the performance, and so she and her husband got thrown out.
I think it's her boyfriend.
It was the mystery man new boyfriend.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a boyfriend?
Yeah, she's getting divorced, or she is divorced.
Was that the story? The story that I had said it was her husband. The story.
No, it's,
Yeah.
and he's not identified, but the entire, I was riveting the security footage. I could not take my eyes off it. You just see her escorted the whole way out, and the whole time he's carrying her purse.
I think she gave one of the guys escorting her out the finger too, which
Yes,
she's
and she's
classy
screaming,
dame.
yelling,
She's a
"Do you know
classy
who
dame,
I-
that one.
Do you
I
know
have
who I am?
now
Do you know
watched
who
the
I am?"
footage. I saw it on Broadway because I get all these like free tickets to shows for a second because I was friends with an influencer and they took me off the list because they were like, she's nobody, but it was really fun for a second. And one of my favorite parts of that musical on Broadway, y'all can mark my words, there's a part because everybody vapes everywhere. There was a part in the original Broadway musical, this dog won't start barking, and they were under the covers having this romantic scene, flew open the covers and they were vaping, and I thought that was the funniest part of the musical. So I'm like, the fact that they were vaping as a joke, it was a lot of comedy. It was like a very comedy heavy so gotta get this dog another bone, but like, and for now her to have this vape, I'm like, is it like art imitating life, life imitating art, you know?
She just has no class, and it's like,
Oh yeah. Yeah. She just, and she can't, she loves showing off with that she has no class.
and it's funny whenever I'm introducing myself to people and I'm trying to give a reference what my name is. So older people, I'll say Lauren, like Lauren Bacall. Younger people, I'll say, Lauren, like who I didn't remember the Lauren who was in Gilmore Girls, but I just
Lauren Graham.
Lauren Graham, but I am cringe, or Lauren Hill, except she spells it cooler than I do. But I cringe that there is somebody in Congress with my name that is that awful.
All right, back to more politics. I just read an article in the Wall Street Journal where the Wall Street Journal interviewed 12 people who were born on the same day as Joe Biden, the exact same day in 1942, to ask them whether or not they thought that Biden is too old to run for president. And it was fascinating because the majority of them, overwhelming majority of them, are still working. They're working, they're teaching, they're doing what it was they were doing before. They just never retired. And those couple that have retired, they're active, they're out there doing things. Only one person said no, that, once she hit 80, then she got liver cancer. All of her friends are dying. Those that aren't dying are having dementia issues that's all started after 80. So after 80 is downhill. The others are saying that 80 is the new 60. Now he'll be 86 if he's reelected. When he leaves office, if he lives to leave office, he'll be 86 years old. So they say that most Democrats, are privately saying he's too old to be running. But what other option do we have right now? And it amazes me too that this is not a question about Trump, because Trump's only 3 years younger.
Right.
Yeah.
Trump's 77. So what do you think? Do you think he's too old at 80 years old to be running?
Well, I don't know if first of all, what pisses me off, like you said, is that nobody's making that same argument about Trump, who may be 3 years younger, but is way less healthy. And I do think age, there are 80-year-olds who, like you said in that article, are still working. I'm not that far from 80, so it doesn't seem that old to me anymore. And, my mom is 87 and still driving, to Southern California from up here. There are people who are 80 and really fit. There are people who are 70 and are too old for office. I wish he were a little younger. I wish it was a country that would just elect Kamala. I don't think that would happen.
Not going to happen.
The only way we're going to have a woman president is for him to, I don't want him to pass away in office, but for him to get elected and then decide he's got some health issues and turn it over to her.
That's what Gerald Ford said. There was a Gerald Ford clip that went viral about 6 months ago from like 1975 about whether or not we'd ever have a woman president. He said, yes,
Great.
Here's how it's going to happen. She's going to be elected vice president, and then the president will die, because that's how America will get its first woman president.
You just ruined my day. I'm already agreeing with Liz Cheney, and now I'm agreeing with Gerald Ford. What is the world coming to?
I think it's ironic that we're worried about these politicians, working too old, when all I hear is, it's like, what are the options? My mom is poor, single mom,
Right.
And she's 70 and she's like, I can never stop working. And it's like she wants to stop working, right? Like, and our politicians are bloated and rich, not necessarily in size, and and they have more money than most people because they, we know all of, the freaking kickbacks and
Plus
lobbyists and
they all have 6 feet after a while anyway. They are all entitled to lifetime 6-figure pensions.
so So it's like, yeah, like take those. I mean, well, okay, look, give those 6-figure pensions to people who need them, like my mom, right? Or like, what about the constituents? People are tired of working. I know so many people who, are broke and there is no middle class anymore. And the big argument is like, are they too old? Well, show us someone else who wants to go into government. Nobody's smart and young. I think the Snapchat billionaire once was talking about, I think Evan Spiegel or whatever, the youngest American billionaire, self-made, whatever, but like wanted to go into politics. Where are the young people wanting to go into politics? Because there's no innovation. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just Lauren, or not Lauren. Lauren, the vapor and
Not me. I don't think. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's a Trump Biden thing. I would vote for Biden's brain in a jar of viscous fluid before I'd vote for Trump or any Republican at this point, because honestly, the Republican Party has nothing, zero to offer me. And I've had this argument with other people, and I go, name one thing. And then they name stuff and I go, that's not true. They're not about fiscal responsibility. We know that every time they get into office, the deficit goes up. Where it's all a grift to get rich people richer. And personally speaking, I would love to live in a country where there were no such thing as a billionaire. There's no reason for anybody to become a billionaire. Jake Johansson has this amazing joke, which is really, I saw him last time and I've repeated it to a number of people about, he goes, I would never be a billionaire. I could never be a billionaire. And besides the obvious thing that you're thinking, I would never be a billionaire because I would get to a certain amount of money and I'd go, I'm done. I don't want to pick up a phone again. I don't want to have to go. I don't want to have to go to work. I don't want to do anything. I just want to go to the best restaurants. I want to travel around the country. I want to live in this place for 6 months. I want to live in that place for 6 months. I don't want to work. I don't want to think about work. I don't want to think about any responsibility other than I want to pay people to do the things that I don't even like to do around the house. Pay here, I'm going to pay you $50,000 a year just to pay my bills. Boom, done. Don't have to think about that either now. So I don't understand billionaires. I don't understand. I honestly have as much respect for billionaires as I do. I actually have less respect for billionaires than I do somebody who's addicted to OxyContin or fentanyl. Because they're addicts, but we elevate them to some magical status that we're supposed to respect them. They're supposed to be these brainiacs, and they're just damaged, horribly damaged people who have no bottom. They have a black hole that they can't ever fill. And I say that because I'm a record collector and I can't fucking stop. I can't stop buying more music. I know what it's like to be an addict. I'm addicted to buying music. These guys are addicted to being rich. That's what they do. That's their gig. That's my job. I made 43 billion last year. I'm going to make 44 billion this year.
Well, and it's competition with each other. Who's the guy, the big Ponzi scheme guy who went to jail? Starts with an M.
Bernie Madoff.
Bernie Madoff. I read this great story about him. He was a millionaire and very, very comfortable until his neighbors started making more money than he did. And that's why he started the whole scheme. He made money doing something legitimate. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. And the only reason he's in jail is because he was ripping off rich people. Right. If you're ripping off poor people, you're okay. Then you're Trump.
No. He ripped off a lot of poor people. He ripped off a lot of people.
But he also ripped off rich people.
Well, he did. Yeah.
That's how he got caught.
That's how he got caught.
The poor
magically
people
they found the evidence.
Money to do anything about it.
But I think I work for a billionaire. I just want to say billionaires run everything. And I work for, I am underpaid and barely, Mark Benioff, the Salesforce billionaire, owns Time magazine. Yeah. And when I was writing for the Time 100 a couple of years ago, there were several billionaires in the audience. And I wanted to say, I was writing all these billionaire jokes and they all got nixed before they even probably made it to him. I was like, the next thing he's going to buy is people so he can name himself sexiest man in the world, or just stupid billionaire jokes. And shut up, just stop. And like I said, I have a full-time job and I have to, I pick up other work for other, I love rich people. I love, but it's so like with great wealth comes great responsibility. And it's so.
What are you, Spider-Man now?
Yeah, really.
But it's like, that's not supposed to be that much wealth. John Laster, comedian who's at the Cellar a lot, has a joke that's, cause he has an app called Blap. Unplug in your app, John Laster. And and he says, he interviewed with for Black businesses, and I don't want to ruin his joke, but it's so much funnier than I'm saying. But he's like, I don't like billionaires. I don't think there should be billionaires. But with that said, I think I'd be a great billionaire. And it is. I've met people who, especially in the Bay Area, you have those good Bay Area rich people, who they have those good values, and it's like, what are you doing with your money, right? I don't know. I'm not a billionaire. I'm nowhere, I'm trying to pay my rent, and that's all. I don't know.
But you don't need to be a billionaire to do good things with money. Cause like I have a Patreon I do weekly videos based
Yeah.
on the news, and I get supported a lot. I mean, I make a decent amount of money.
No, I don't think there should be
People who are
billionaires.
giving me, 20, 25, $100 a month, whatever. They're rich. They're way richer than I am, but they're not billionaires. And maybe it's because they're doing what Tom said. They're like, I've got enough money now. I'm going to start spending it on supporting the arts or supporting research into good things. The big billionaires, they're not doing good stuff with it for the most
Well, that's what
Like your
Buffett's
boss.
doing. Warren Buffett is giving away all of his money. He
And
said
so
he
the Disney heiress, whatever her name is, she is too.
Yeah.
And
Diane?
what's his name? Yeah.
Yeah, but Buffett says that what the deal is, he's leaving his kids enough money so that they can live and be comfortable, but so they still have to do something.
Right.
And smart enough. He's enough smart. He's leaving enough money so that they still have to do something, and then the rest of it, he's giving it all away.
We're
Yeah.
in late stage capitalism, like Rome is falling.
Yeah.
And it's going to be so interesting to capture our last of days.
Oh, I agree and completely. I mean, to me, it's like, it's just, it's the people who are so against educating our people are the ones that are pulling all the strings, and they don't want people educated and knowing what's going to happen. It's going downhill in a rocket sled. I mean, people are, this generation is going, what happened? Because nobody can afford a house. Nobody in their 30s, that I know out here, especially if you're in your 30s, early 30s, mid 30s, 40s, even, you can't, and you're not a homeowner yet. You're never going to be a homeowner. Never.
I was a homeowner before I got divorced. I will never be a homeowner again. And I'm in my 60s and I just been renting.
So somebody dies and leaves you a house, you'll be a homeowner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you win the lottery.
Yeah.
Then there's the reverse mortgages against the houses. But Tom, there's this, when you were saying, heroin addicts or opioid addicts, I like them over billionaires. Well, they are the addicts because of billionaires. If you watch Dope Sick and, big pharma and,
The sociopaths.
So they're making
they're
more
truly
addicts.
sociopaths, so they can make more money off of it. And I've been working on a joke about, being in the Bay Area, where it's not funny. It's really not funny, but it's very dark and real. But I would go to grad school, and what a privilege. My family, what a stupid thing. I was married to someone with money who I thought was rich at the time, not a billionaire, not connected to a billionaire. Their family had money, but my classmate was the dean of freshman students at Stanford for 10 years, Julie, and she wrote a book, How to Raise an Adult. And she would come to class and say, we lost another kid. Her kids went to school in Palo Alto. And she said, we lost another kid, and these kids were jumping in front of trains, killing themselves, one of the highest suicide rates. And in my hometown, it's one of the highest, but it's like unintentional suicide rates from, opioid, like overdosing on drugs. And there's something of that sense of, like, in the Bay Area, people have such high expectations, they can't live up to it. And where I'm from, people have no expectations, and we all just want to die one way or another. And I'm like, the drug way seems easier to me, because at least you're not like stone cold sober jumping in front of a train. And that's it's not a joke worked out, but it is something that I can't.
I was gonna say, where are you going with this bit?
It's not a joke at all, but it's like,
Yeah.
I think to that answer, like people in their 30s, I am in my 30s, and it's like, we don't have, there's a lot of hopelessness and a lot of like, oh, I didn't achieve this, I'll never have this.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that?
What's it cost in New York right now to live? What's it cost to rent an apartment in New York right now in Manhattan?
I am blessed and highly favored and live in a rent stabilized apartment in Greenwich Village, which is just people. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. And my family was like, come back to Texas during the pandemic. I was nannying. and I did a show in a bike lane every Friday because you couldn't sell tickets past the hat type of thing. And because all my writing work was drying up. And I say this to say I pay about all like 2,500, and that's rent stabilized in one
How
of the
big's
most
the place?
expensive neighborhoods. Probably like 450 square feet. And I recently fell in love with a comedian who also has a day job in a nonprofit. And so now we at least get to split the rent. And and that's like a couple of weeks ago. But it's like, you know, it's hard. And even getting a guarantor in an apartment like that, you have to make like 40 times the rent. You
Mm.
have to it's so classist. Our
40
country,
40 times?
yeah, our country is so classist, and I've always said this. I'm like, we're more aligned in class than we are race. And it is, I mean, I'm a white woman, so people just assume I'm rich, and I love that for me. But I you know, it's crazy. And it's like people, I get so mad because I have a running list of amazing comedians I love who are the kids of billionaires or the kids of super wealthy people. And one of them is like Nick Kroll. And I was that kid from a small town in Texas reading Backstage magazine. And it would be like, Nick Kroll, I supported, what do you do for a living? I support myself by teaching improv. And that's a great way to work on your craft and make money. And I'm like, oh, Googling him, searching him. I'm like, oh, his dad owns Kroll Industries and he's a billionaire. And you're telling kids in rural Texas they can move to New York and teach improv and like pursue comedy. And it's like, no, you can't. And even with the writer's strike, when people are like, I stand with the writer's strike, I'm like, I've written for a lot of stuff. I've never been in the guild. My friends who are in the guild mostly have had rich parents or really lucky breaks that they keep afloat. And I've done these gigs and I'm like, pay teachers more. I have a graduate degree, and I was going to go to school again for a year to be a teacher and make as much money as I was making nannying and doing other gigs. It's like, this country has a wealth gap and a work wage gap and I mean, there's a lot of problems.
Did you see what Bill Maher said on his podcast thing to Jim Gaffigan about the writers? What do they deserve to make a living? What do they what?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
He said that?
Yeah. Gaffigan's jaw was on the floor.
Was he kidding?
But no. In case you haven't in case this must be a secret to some people out there, but Bill Maher's an asshole.
I totally
I've
agree with you, and
I've known Bill for a long, long time. I don't care to know. I've done a thing that happened that I'm done with him, but he's always been an asshole. But he's always had that borderline nice guy thing too. But he Kevin Rooney used to be the head writer for Real Time, and one day he just came home. He just went, nope. Bill Maher, went into his office and said, "Hey, Kevin, you got to start bringing the funny." And Kevin Rooney is like one of the funniest human beings that, ever. A guy who can, hold court in front of like 20 comics, and everybody's like, he's as quiet as a mouse, just waiting for the next words to fall out of his mouth. And Bill Maher had the audacity to say that to Kevin, and Kevin just went home, said, F you and see you later. Bye-bye. And I don't even know if he said that. He just went home and never came back. His agent, he called his agent, said, I'm not going back in. If they got a problem, they can sue me. I don't care.
My story. This is pre-Uber. Was going from Burbank to in a cab to a meeting in Los Angeles that I had. And the cab driver just making small talk and says, "So what do you do?" And I said, "I'm a comedian." He goes, "I gave a comedian a ride one time. Bill Maher, what an asshole." Cab driver.
He's a condescending asshole. He's an amazing asshole. Like
cab driver says,
he gets residual checks every time he's an asshole. He gets even more money. That's how much of an asshole he is. I think he thinks he's getting paid for it.
And I don't know him personally. I don't know cab drivers who know him personally, but my husband used to like the show, but I never thought he was particularly funny. I did like that he had a range of guests on, but he is really condescending, especially to women. And
he's super sexist.
He's
the other
super
thing is,
sexist.
I don't know if you've been, I've stopped watching the show. I see clips every once in a while, but I know the guests, the quality of guests have fallen off drastically over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you when I stopped watching him, because I would watch him periodically, because I like this monologue. I like the guests that he had on, and he is a good interviewer. When he's at his best, he really is a good interviewer. But when he goes on this thing about, he goes off on this riff, and it wasn't really even a riff. It was a plea / demand that Barack Obama had done the Tonight Show, and I think he did Letterman, and did some others. And he goes, "I donated $1 million to your last campaign. Do my show. I'm asking you to do a show. I gave you $1 million. You know, the least you could do is do my show." So let me get this straight: you bought him for $1 million. He owes you because you donated $1 million. And of course, he didn't do it. You know, he didn't do it. But when
Well, that would pretty much guarantee that you wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
You know,
know.
I was so offended by that. Just that whole idea that you
He is the poster boy for privileged white guys. I
And
mean,
privileged
he
white guys who think they were, you know, they're
yeah,
born on
they
the verge.
I earned it. I earned you showing up on my show. You
And
know, he always
should
does that.
He should totally book all of us so we can go on there and say it.
Yeah,
Just-
exactly. Especially you and me, Kate, so that we can
Yeah.
talk back to him.
Yeah,
Usually that
yeah.
That he would only have one woman at a time when he had the panels, especially on the earlier one, the whatever the politics one was. Yeah,
Politically
he'd only have
correct.
one woman at a time, so we'd have to battle it out.
politically correct.
He's always praising Republicans that come on as a guest too, because they're so brave to come on Bill Maher's show.
He's a
Yeah.
Republican who likes to smoke weed.
Most Republicans should smoke weed.
Yeah, they should.
Remember what he said? Remember what he said that got him canceled? Remember what the thing was?
The guys going into the
9/11.
9/11 was
They
they
were
weren't
brave.
cowards.
That they were brave.
They were
That they were
well.
brave.
I don't
To
think
get
he
it-
honestly.
He says get in the plane and to fly a plane into a building, that's brave. To press a
Well,
button for
I-
1,000 miles away and send a missile, that's not brave.
I will say that what he said was people call them cowards. They weren't cowards to drive to ride a plane into a building and know you're going to die is not really a cowardly act. It's so. I mean, I kind of defend him on that aspect, but he's got a ton more stuff that he said
Should
that
have been canceled, yeah.
from my book, I don't believe in going out there and say Bill Maher should be canceled. I just stopped watching. I just stopped watching because I just got irritated too many times with him saying contradictory things and not even realize what a hypocrite he's being. And I just went, you know what? I'm tired of yelling at the TV. Done. I got better things to do with my day. That's why I don't watch any of the, I don't need to watch Tim Pool to know he's an asshole. I don't need to watch Ben Shapiro to know he's an asshole. I see 5 minutes of him. Oh, I go asshole. And I don't have to watch anymore.
Although his burning Ken and Barbie as a protest for the Barbie movie was hilarious. Did you guys?
Especially when he say no one's going to watch this ever again after the first week, it's going to totally drop off.
But it looked just like, I don't, for some reason, it reminded me of that scene of Rick Moranis playing with the action figures in Spaceballs.
He actually bought Barbies. That's the funny thing. To burn
No,
them.
I think he already had them.
It's like the people who would buy Beatle albums to burn them after John Lennon said we're bigger than Jesus.
Or who
It's
bought
like,
beer cans to shoot them up to protest, Bud Light.
we need more Beatle albums. Somebody go to the store.
With that, we are out of time. So let's talk some plugs. Kate, where can people come and see you? What do you want to plug? Anything?
Yeah, I'm gonna be in Dallas. I'm gonna be in Dallas. I'm every month I'm at the Stand, so you can see me at the Stand. And I'm gonna be at New York Comedy Festival at the Stand. And in December I've got I'm featuring for Derek Drescher at one of the Helium comedy clubs. I can't remember, but I will think of it later.
You got a website?
Cap City Comedy, sorry, in Austin. Yeah.
Have you got a website?
Yeah, it'll be on my website. Yeah.
Well, what's your website?
Oh, Kate Robards. Sorry. I've done this.
Yes, I have a website.
I'm Kate Robards on
I
everything.
was just
Thank you.
asking for the hell of it. Not that I needed to know so I could
So-
go there.
The whole time I'm talking, I'm waving a bone to keep this dog from so yes, Kate Robards, thank you.
Okay, Lauren.
My website's laurenmayer.com. And right now I'm in the middle of directing a middle school show, which is why I'm in front of this theater here and they gracefully let me do it. So I'm not doing a whole lot of performing, but I always have a song come out every Friday. It's on my website, Psycho Supermom. I'll preview the one that's coming out Friday is about money being wasted in political campaigns and why we should have campaign finance reform. That's funny. Let's see if I can make campaign finance reform funny. And then I do a monthly live stream on YouTube and Facebook. Facebook's, which is my Facebook page is Learning Our Comedy Songs, and that's October 1st. And you can go to my website and buy all my albums because I have a bunch of
Alright.
comedy song albums.
And Tom, you got the documentary.
Yeah, and you can go
Speak
on
the
to
truth.
my website, which is Tom Sawyer Voices. That's Tom Sawyer, like the book or the Rush song, your preference, voices.com. And if you go there, you'll hear a lot of my demos and my commercial work and animation work. And also you'll see amazing pictures from the last 30 years of Cobb's Comedy Club. So many great photos on Cobb's Comedy Club page, and there's a direct link to the documentary, The Comedy Club. It's a good hour and a half movie, and I think most people will enjoy it.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for being with me today. I appreciate it. It's been fun. Do it again, okay? Lauren, I know you'll come back.
I will, anytime you want me. Now that I
I'm
know,
not even worried about you. I know you'll.
I have no life, Brian.
Tom and Ken, I hope that you'll come back and join us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice to
Alright.
meet you both.
Nice to meet y'all.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week. If you want to support us, a number of ways that you can do that. One is you can go to whatever platform you were listening to us on, whether it's iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify. Give us a 5-star review. That helps people to find the show. If you are watching us on YouTube, we're trying to get 1,000 subscribers. We need 1,000 YouTube subscribers, in which case then we can do the show live. Which is great because then we can take your comments while we're doing the show live. Because right now we record on Wednesdays and everything drops on Thursdays. But I would love to do it live to be able to incorporate comments from those of you who are watching and listening. So I will check out next week. Till then, be kind to your neighbor. He knows where you live.